All right, what up, guys? Welcome back to another Buttendz Sessionz episode. We got a great sesh coming here today. We're really excited and honored to have a special guest with us today, Marlène Boissonnoult, a professional hockey goalie all the way from Dundee, New Brunswick. She is a professional hockey goalie who started her career in Canada, went all around the world, and ended up playing 4 years for Cornell University, the Big Red.
hmm hmm
Played in the Frozen Four back in 2019. After
Yeah.
graduating from college, Ross is now a professional hockey goalie in the PWHL, just signed a professional hockey contract with the Minnesota Frost. We're super
hmm
excited to have her on the show today. Thanks a lot for tuning in.
Yeah, of
Marlène,
course.
thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm excited. This is awesome.
Yeah, really appreciate it. So we should tell everybody, we actually just met a couple weeks ago. We were at the Minnesota Hockey Expo,
Yep.
and you were there with Ryan Ball, is that right?
That's right. I was there. I got brought down for the Hockey for All with Ryan, just to be kind of able to do autographs and talk about the camps that we're running, things like that. And yeah, I had never experienced something that big. The Minnesota Expo doesn't mess around. It's massive. It's exciting. A lot of people. Obviously, the high school tournament is nothing like you'd ever experience unless you go, because you really don't realize how many fans actually go to it. And yeah, that's where we met. You showed me your obviously butt ends, and it's been history ever since for the
Yeah,
past
it was
two,
super
3 weeks.
exciting. It was super
Yeah.
exciting for me to meet you, and I just want to congratulate you also too on the new contract you just recently signed with
Thank you.
Minnesota in the
Yeah.
PWHL. What's that whole
Yeah.
experience been like for you?
It's definitely been a bit of a roller coaster because obviously last year I played with the PWHL in Montreal for the whole year. I was obviously under contract with them. Earlier this year, I went to training camp with Montreal, but I was let go because they wanted me to be put on waivers so that I would get games in Europe. So what happens with women's hockey is you don't have that many opportunities locally in Canada just because there's only 6 teams currently. And if you're a goalie, you have even more so restricted opportunities. For me, being one of the goalies who's not on the national team currently on the Olympic teams, we're actually fighting for that spot in the upcoming Olympics is very difficult because you have 6 teams and you have 6 Olympians, right? So there's all your starting spots, and then after that you have whoever else is on the bubble or right out of that bubble or whatever. So I wasn't one of those people. So being in Montreal as a third last year kind of put me in a position this year where the GM approached me and said, "Hey, we really want to have you, but here's the reality for your career. We want to put you on waivers so that you're able to go somewhere, snag a spot in Europe so that you're able to get games." But in doing so, letting me go in December was a bit of a tough situation because in December you're more than halfway through European League schedules, right? So by
Right.
that time, I kind of was left without the team. And then by the time I came back to Montreal saying, "Hey, actually, I couldn't find a team. So can you take me on?" The roster freeze happens and it's all sorts of chaos. But then luckily enough, when Minnesota, obviously a spot opened up, they called me right up because I think they knew obviously what product I had. And I wasn't let go for the usual reasons, which worked out in my favor. So when I was called up from Minnesota, they were thrilled. I was thrilled because for me, it's a place to practice, even right. Because the struggle bus is that you don't have a place to practice anymore, right? Unless you're local and
Right.
have either teams you can hop on with. I had one of the U18 AAA female team here that I knew the coach pretty well, so I was able to hop on with them. But otherwise, you got to pay for private sessions. And private sessions as a goalie, when it's a one-on-one private session, it's pricey, right? So then
Yeah.
things like that started to add up. So no, it's pretty funny actually. So you're talking about the Minnesota Expo. So I went there and there's this one lady that came and shook my hand and basically introduced myself. I introduced myself to her. She introduced herself to me, and turns out she was one of the agents that works very heavily into the PWHL. So that's actually how I was able to kind of, in a roundabout way, get my shot with Minnesota because yeah, she called me up as one of her clients on her agency program, and I signed with her, and then she was able to get me an opportunity for Minnesota. In a roundabout way, you could say the Minnesota Expo kind of got me my pro contract, I guess.
I think that's really cool. I didn't know that story, and it just shows you, like, you get out there and you're at the expo, you're meeting people, and it created an opportunity for yourself that maybe didn't wouldn't have existed had you not gone. And I think a lot of
Exactly.
goalies also can relate with the struggle that you had, where there's a ton of goalies trying to make it to the next level, and there's just not a
Yeah,
lot of spots for goalies.
exactly.
How have you been able to keep a positive mindset through this challenging time where you haven't been like one of the top two goalies or on a roster for the last little while?
It's definitely been challenging because for me particularly, I like to be realistic, right? Like if things suck, right? You can't fake it in that way. But
Yeah.
my way to kind of stay in the proper mindset is I always have the mindset of, hey, if an opportunity comes up, I want to be ready for it, right? I'm only 27, which in the professional hockey world, like 27-year-old goalie is pretty young, right? Because goalies generally,
Right.
they want them really mature, they want them really late in their age. So I was thinking, okay, well, my career is not over. There's no way because I'm peaking. Like I'm one of the best I've ever been. And in this league, truthfully, the GMs around the league have been saying like, no, you're definitely like one of the starter goalies or a 50-50 goalie. But the issue I had is this season prior, I had an ankle surgery, right? So that took
Wow.
me out of a couple of games. So if ever you have not that many games to your name the season prior, usually it's a bit of a red flag unless it's clarified. And for me, it was clarified and justified because I had ankle surgery, but still there was not that many games. So when you're in a tight league where there's only 6 playing spots realistically, then it doesn't work in your favor. But the way that I stayed very much so kind of engaged and ready to basically jump on an opportunity like I had with Minnesota is by staying fit, staying ready. And mentally it's very much of a struggle bus because in the female sport you think, gee, like that may be the end of my career, like maybe that was it for me. And I've
Yeah.
definitely had those thoughts and definitely had those dark moments. But truthfully, it's also the support system I had. Like just realizing and constantly recognizing that, hey, it's not the end of the world. At the end of the day, like I've done what I had to do, and should something else come up, I'll be ready for it. So I put myself in that position, and luckily enough, obviously a spot came up. And then next year, there's supposed to be expansion teams too. Hopefully, that's the rumor mill out west. So if there's 2 more expansion teams, that's an extra, call it 6 spots for goalies. And then within the league, some people are going to retire, some people are going to move on, et cetera, et cetera. So I kind of put myself in a place where regardless, I kind of, if an opportunity comes up, I'll be ready for it. Because the worst thing that could happen is to get that call from Minnesota and be completely out of shape, haven't been on the ice in months, and then just not being in a mental space where you're ready to go out and play games, right? Because that obviously be the end of your career, self-induced.
No. Yeah,
So I
that's
kind of,
inspiring to hear. And how have you
yeah.
like how has it been so far since you signed and since you've reported to Minnesota? Like, were you able to slide right in and just be ready to go?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was pretty crazy actually. The turnaround between getting the call, signing my contract, and then being on site was a couple days. Like it's very quick, very quick. I still don't have my full visa. Like right now we kind of got to work around the rules of the government visas and things like that. So there's a lot of ways to kind of cut corners on there until I get it official. But truthfully, it happened so quickly. And when I was there last week, so right now this week we actually have a week off. So I came back to Calgary, which is my kind of local hub, because I had a lot of things on the go here. I do a lot of private coaching, so I had kind of
Yeah.
left a lot of things kind of up to dry. But in Minnesota, it's pretty cool. You get there, you're thrown into the heat of things right away. You're into practice, you're hitting the ground running. It's really cool. The staff there, I love the overall team atmosphere. They treat you really professionally. And every year, I think every market develops more professionally and have more resources to obviously allocate to their athletes, from training facilities to the everything, like your merch, your the quality of staff that you have and everything like that. So it's quite phenomenal. Honestly, being there in the past week was very refreshing to me because that's very much so a home base feeling, right? Like having that team to train with. So that to me was exciting. And the girls are amazing. I mean, it's pretty crazy that to me, it's obviously like there's only a month-ish left in the season without the
Yeah.
playoffs run. So that to me is crazy because obviously to me it still very much so feels like the early part of the season, but the girls are so welcoming. It's pretty amazing how everybody kind of pivots and realizes, okay, well, we have somebody who got brought in, so let's make sure we make her a part of the team, because until that person feels like a part of the team, it's always going to be a bit of a grind up for them, right? So the girls just brought me in.
Sure.
Obviously, we had a lot of chats over lunch, dinner, things like that, and you get very comfortable with the team, and then all from there, it just feels like you've always been a part of the program. So they've done a pretty amazing job with it.
That's great to hear, and it's been really fun to watch the evolution of the pro women's game and to see
Yeah,
the growth that you guys have
yeah,
been experiencing.
yeah,
So take us back a little bit. You're from Dundee, New Brunswick. Dundee, is that right?
yep, yep. From
So
Denton, New
you grew up in
Brunswick.
Dundee. What was it? When did you first decide, like, this is my position? I'm going to be a goalie. Like, how did it come about?
So I started as a player. I started as a player. I started actually as a figure skater for many, many years until one of my oldest brothers. So I come from a family of 6 kids, 6 kids born in 6 years without twins. So
Wow.
very much so back to back. So a very
Are
tight
you one
knit
of
group.
the
And
oldest or youngest or middle, or where
I'm
do you fit
the
in?
I'm the fourth. So I actually have 3 older brothers and 2 younger sisters. So there's 3 boys, 3 girls in that order. And so I'm right in the middle, smack in the middle. And one of my older brothers and my dad were goalies. They had tried playing the goaltending position a couple years prior, and I remember seeing them. And to be honest with you, it's going to sound silly, but I remember being so jealous of how unique a goalie is. And they get their own gear and they get their own stuff. And then when the game goes their way, then they get all the praise and things like that. Especially as a kid, right? Like as a kid, it's very much so intensified. And I remember kind of being jealous of that feeling and wanting to try it out. So then my dad was like, of course, like you're young, try it out, see if you like it. If you don't, whatever. And from that day, I loved it. That was pretty young. I think I was around, gosh, maybe 7, 9 years old, like around that age. And then I remember a couple of years after, my dad kind of sat me down with my mom and said, hey, sorry, but you got to pick between figure skating and goaltending because both sports are so privatized that
Right.
goaltending costs you an arm and a leg, right? And especially
Yeah.
a family of 6 kids, like you gotta cut corners where you can. And then figure skating is so privatized as well because it's all private sessions and renting the ice surface and everything like that. So essentially became chose to become a goalie and then played boys through high school. And essentially in high school I went to a prep school. I got called up to go to a prep school with a female program more southern of New Brunswick in a school called Broughton Netherwood School. Phenomenal program, but played boys my entire career just because there's not really, in small communities there's still not enough the population of female that want to play sports enough to make a team out of it. So I
Sure.
definitely had my fair share of playing with guys and being obviously very involved with the game still, and the guys being so good about it. So yeah, ended up playing boys still. I went to prep school, and in prep school, that's where female hockey started for me, and then it just exponentially grew from there. Obviously, right into the PWHL, which is pretty fortunate.
So were you like a stud right from the beginning? Did you always know you had skills? And was it a dream for you when you were a kid? So you're, a young girl growing up in New Brunswick. Did you see yourself becoming a
Mhm.
professional hockey player, or did you always want to go to university? What was that like?
I think my dream was definitely university and Olympics because I feel like that was the professional lifestyle, right? Back then, you didn't have the PWHL to dream for. Now you do. The girls could say, like, I meet so many young girls, or I see so many interviews with young girls, and they say, "One day I want to be a professional hockey player," and it almost brings
Right.
me to tears because it's like, holy crap, like that's such a like it's completely new. I could have never dreamt about that because that wasn't a thing, right? If anything, I wanted to play in the NHL, which soon enough became a reality
Right.
that it won't really happen. But then for me, it was I always wanted to play at McGill. McGill University was like out east. You hear of McGill, and it's like this amazing school, and it still very much so is, right? Top of the league, things like that. So that to me is where I wanted to go, and I wanted to play for the Olympics. Luckily enough, when I was in high school, I got called up by the national program, and I played for the national program for, gosh, I don't know, 7, 8 years after that. Played till COVID. COVID is when I kind of got put a little bit on the bubble through different injuries that I had, and also obviously the rosters being very much so kind of shortened through COVID protocols. But ultimately, yeah, my dream was to play university. That was it for me. But then one of the reasons I went to prep school actually is because until my high school years, I never spoke English at all. I was completely
Wow.
strictly French because the northern part of New Brunswick is strictly French. And fun fact, New Brunswick is actually the only bilingual province in Canada, like recognized as being bilingual nationally. So I grew up in the northern part, which is strictly French, and then the southern part is pretty much strictly English. So that's where I went to prep school. And one of the big things was because I knew I wanted to go to university in English. And I knew McGill probably had more so kind of those English things. And I wanted to go to med school as well. That was another thing of mine. And so I wanted to have that bilingual background. And then playing on the national team, things like that too. I knew that there was a lot of girls I couldn't communicate with, right? Because they're so English. So I
Yeah.
had to find a way to be able to communicate with them. And a big way I was able to do that was to go to English school. So I went to English school, just jumped into the deep end in grade 10 and figured my way out, and then was able to get very good grades and everything like that while being an athlete. And from there, I actually got very lucky, and I got recruited by a very, very good amount of schools. And I had, luckily, the pick of the litter. When I said I was a stud, honestly, I vividly remember this moment. And I was playing Bantam or Pee Wee AAA, I think it was, with the local guys. And I remember going in net, and every time I would go in net, the team were all guys. And this is where the guys obviously get a little bit more of an attitude in their adolescent years. And I remember going in net,
Sure.
and all the guys would sigh. All the guys would sigh because it'd be like, oh, Marlène is going in net, like Frank, because I used to get lit up. I would get absolutely lit up. I remember playing against the Campbellton Tigers. They were a local team, and I would get so lit up. I'd go in net, and I'd absolutely hate it. But my dad was always there, and I remember I had one coach who told me, and this is what literally probably pivoted my entire career, is I had this one coach. His name is Serge Leroy, and to this day, I tell myself, I got to go. I know where he lives. I got to go knock on his door and shake his hand and tell him this story. But he had pulled me out after like 1 or 2 periods where I got probably absolutely lit up. And he had told me, because I was like probably crying, not feeling it, he goes, before the puck gets to you, it has to be beat, like the puck has to beat 5 other players on the ice. So for the puck to actually get to you means 5 other players made mistakes, right?
Yeah.
And I remember that very much so being a pivotal moment of like, oh, like if I get scored on, it's not entirely my fault. And it really isn't. As a goalie, you think like, oh, the number goes up on the scoreboard and jumbotron, like it stings, like you think it's yours, but really it's a team stat, right? That's why goals against average, things like a lot of it is team stats to a certain degree. But then, yeah, I remember that being the pivotal moment. And I think from there is where I very much so kind of started uprooting because the mental game became very different. It was very much so like, okay, now how can I make it so that the team mistakes aren't obviously recognized on the scoreboard? And then I just always loved the game. I mean, I always had so much fun doing what I did, and I was able to play with some of my siblings. Like I said, we're so close in age that every other year I'd play with my oldest, or not oldest, but my sibling right above me, my brother right above me, or my sister right below me. So every year I always had a sibling with me. So it was always fun. And I mean, I think that's how I developed it. I think that's how I became quote unquote good enough to play at the levels I did, is because I always had fun. Regardless what happened, I always came home with a smile on my face, and I was there with my siblings, my friends, and it was always a good time. Going to the rink was always fun, and I think that's the way you develop. Is if you don't have fun, you're not going to develop. You're not going to want to obviously put in the effort and go to the rink for long hours. And after school, we used to play so many sports. Like going to hockey was the very last of like 3 sports that day, right? So to find the energy or the will to go out there and have fun, you had to like it. And for me, fortunately enough, my parents put it in a place where to me was my highlight of the day. So that I think
Oh,
that's
that's the
mostly how
best.
I. Yeah, yeah. So that was a huge part of why I think I got the skills I got today, because I really loved it from a very young age.
What a great story, and I think a lot of goalies can probably relate with what you're saying, where you feel like the
Hmm.
whole world is on top of you if you let in a goal,
Yeah,
but it's a team game,
yeah,
and to have that happen for you at a young age, that's amazing. Also, I'm thinking while you're talking, I'm like, wow, it must have been an amazing experience to have like a full hockey family. You're
yeah,
like you read about, right? Like from a Canadian
yeah,
family where everybody plays and you get to play with your
yeah,
brothers and sisters. Must have
yeah.
been a kind of like a dream every day to be able to have
Yeah.
that experience.
It's. I think we had almost a full lineup. Like I said, one of my brothers was also a goalie,
Yeah,
so we had two
yeah.
goalies, two forwards, two Ds. So we almost had a lineup. We would have made a killer 3v3 team. But and my dad used to play as well. He played beer league for the longest time, so we had a full lineup. I mean, that was a blast. My dad had a backyard, a backyard ODR. So at the end of the day, we were the true like Canadian style hockey family, and we just had a blast doing it. It was one of those things where we did it as a family, and we'd go to each other's obviously games and practices, because at the end of the day, there's just one mom, one dad, so you only have 2 drives to get places. So we were always at each
Yeah.
other's practices and games. So no, we definitely had the Canadian hockey lifestyle growing up for sure.
Oh, that's amazing. So, okay, so you move on. You're in prep school. You learn
Yep,
English. You're starting to
yep,
blossom as a goaltender, and then the universities come knocking. That must have been.
yep.
I mean, that was my dream as a kid to play college hockey. I didn't have a lot of schools knocking on my door when I was in high school. What was it
Yeah.
like for you? You said you had the pick of the litter. You could go anywhere you wanted. You ended up going. I think you made a great choice. Obviously, you go to the
Hmm.
Ivy League. You play at Cornell, which is a prestigious university. 4 years there. 6 wins. What, second in all time for the school in wins for goaltending? How did you choose
Hmm.
Cornell? And then what was it like to have like all these schools knocking on your door when you're just a young high school player?
It was honestly, it was pretty. I remember it being pretty overwhelming. There's nobody that teaches you, or when you go to a prep school like that, like it's known that you're going to have a lot of athletes that go on to be very successful. But I think I was one of the unique ones, or one of the first ones, right? Because I think I kind of grew up as hockey kind of developed more and more. Obviously, I was able to be
Yeah,
there through the professional league folding the year I graduated from university to obviously now. So I was able to see the entire progression. But then when I got called up from different universities, it was very much so, okay, where do I want to go that if ever I get hurt, I'm going to want to spend the rest of my 4 years there, or 5 if I went to Canada, obviously. So it was more
right.
so kind of deciding where do I want to go, what program is it going to be the most competitive, because I obviously want to be able to win a Frozen Four, make a difference, things like that. But it really came down to I had an advisor at school. He was awesome. He had went to a Division 3 school. I think it was Norwich. He had went to, but ultimately he knew which programs to go to and which programs wouldn't be the right fit for me. Because obviously you got to find the right fit. There's some schools that might be outstanding out there, but they're not made for
Yeah,
you, right? There's just a different style, or they don't have what you want to study. And like I said, I wanted to study med school or go to med school. I want to study pre med. So I wanted to go somewhere where if I came out, my degree would have a lot of power behind it, right? And obviously
of
an Ivy
course.
League school has that. But then the bigger decision that I had was, okay, well at that point, an Ivy League school doesn't have full scholarships, right? So I kind of had the final two decisions, or final two decision makers were, do I go somewhere where I can get a full ride and not pay a single dime and get per diems, get all sorts of money, like come out of school basically with money? Or do I go to a school where I'm going to come out with 100K USD almost in debt, right? Like it's one of
Yeah,
those things where you had to pick, because the Ivy League schools is basically it's financially based on how much your parents do or whatever. And then for us at Cornell, my parents were doing very well, so I had to pay nearly full pop. Not quite, because we were 6 kids, of course, but had to pay money. But at the end of the day, to me, that made the most sense. I wanted to go to top 10 schools that was going to be able to kind of fight their way in Frozen Fours. And then luckily enough, I had the right advisors tell me, hey, Cornell would actually be a great fit for you. I was able to go visit the school. I had the coaches actually come visit me in my hometown in Dunedin, Brunswick, too, to kind of do their part of the recruitment process. And they also came to my school. So I had a lot of times where I was able to kind of interact with them and obviously develop a relationship with the coaches, which is huge. At the end of the day, if you don't like the coaches, you're not going to like your time there. Cornell, our coaches were phenomenal. So I was very, very
Oh,
lucky to
great.
have a good staff. And then ultimately, Cornell was the right call for me. Like I said, I had a lot of options. Luckily, I was very, very fortunate. At the end of the day, the most important one to be on there was definitely Cornell. Had I just had that one, I would have been a happy kid because my 4 years there were outstanding, some of the best.
Yeah, it looked like you had a very successful tenure as a starting goalie for the Big Red, and in
Yeah.
2019 you guys made it all the way to the Frozen Four. What was that
Yeah.
experience like? I mean, as a player myself, you grow up watching Frozen Four. It must have been very exciting.
But yeah, it was unreal. I mean, for us, my first year where I started there was very much so a rebuild year. We had lost our massive class of the Rebecca Johnson, Jill Sauniers, and Brianne Jenner, which in the women's hockey world, like they're the top names, right, in the Olympic level, and they still are. So when I
Yeah,
had come in, they had all just graduated. They were all in the same class. So you can just imagine you go from having five of the best players in the NCAA on your team to all of them graduating. So the first year was very much
yeah,
a rebuild. And then there on out, it was just about building to, okay, we want to make it to the Frozen Four. My senior year, we made it to the Frozen Four. It was amazing. I remember that feeling was like, it was very unique because Cornell doesn't get to go very often. So when we got to go, it was really special. We lost in the semis against Minnesota, which was a very heartbreaking loss. But at the same time, to us, it was a huge success. Like even making it to the Frozen Four itself was huge. And we actually lost in the semifinals. It was 1-0 until we got scored on an open net because we tried to obviously tie it up at the end. But it was a 1-0
wow,
game, and I remember
big
playing
game.
against Minnesota. It was so tight, and I remember the people who scored. There were two sisters. They were the Potomac sisters, and if you know about the women's hockey world, the Potomac sisters were dangerous. They were so dangerous on the ice. They were if they were on this and they had put them on the same line. Like it was just one of those things where you just knew if they're on the ice, you have to be on your best game. And they just obviously kept putting
Yeah,
them out because they're so good. They were super, super fit and they could produce. So having them on the ice, I remember just and they hadn't scored till I think like second half or very late into the game. And that to me was a success in itself. Like not being lit up 6-0 was huge. So ultimately being able to go there and produce and give our team a really solid chance. Goalie on the other side stood on their head. We had given obviously our fair shot. But like, yeah, unreal experience. To this day, you don't really remember the scores. I do, but what you really remember is how fun you had, how much fun you had, and go to those events. They do them so well, like you said. It's one of those things where a lot of people watch it, so it's very, very well done. Like everything you've treated so well, and it was just honestly such a hoot. Like it was a really good time. And then coming out of it,
yeah,
graduating obviously that year was you graduate on a high, right? You go as far as you can, and you come back to the school. You're borderline celebrities because you come back to the school as a Frozen Four athlete, which is pretty amazing, and the whole school cheers for you. Cornell is obviously a very good student body base, so you come back and it's amazing. It was a really good time. It was one of the
that's
best.
cool. Where was the Frozen Four that year? Where did they held it?
I want to say Hamden, Connecticut, or something like that.
Oh, okay,
Some like at Quinnipiac, I think it was. I might be making that up though, but I think it was at,
okay,
at
all right,
QPAC.
right on.
I think it
Yeah,
was
that
at
makes sense.
Quinnipiac. It was a pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. Yeah, huge facility, really nice spot.
So let's talk about the nickname. Who
Yeah.
gave you the nickname Boss, and how does that reflect your personality, or how did the nickname come about?
So obviously my name is very French. So Marlène Boissonnault, it's very, very French. So if you put my name on any piece of paper and you give it to somebody who's never spoken French in their lives, they'll usually say Marlene Boissonnault, and that's usually the way it comes out. And my first year at the national program, I had one of my goalie coach. He was from Nova Scotia, and he was trying to figure out a nickname for me because you go to your first national camp, you're trying to obviously make buddies and stuff, and you got to use nicknames. And for me, obviously, I didn't have a nickname. My name is so French and so clean as can be.
Yeah,
There's not really any ways to kind of shorten it. And this coach was English. He was from Nova Scotia, and he had said Bossino, saying it wrong, obviously. And he goes, boss. He goes, I'll call you boss. And just shortening
yeah,
the wrong end of my last name. And then honestly, it stuck so well because as a goalie, like it's a very obviously like powerful nickname. Like you're the
for
boss, you own your
sure.
crease, and it just stuck. And it's so easy. And I feel like it's one of those things where I never introduced myself as boss, I think, till I really hit kind of the collegiate level, because this would have been probably grade 10, grade 9, my first years of the national program. And I think in college is when I really started to say, yeah, my nickname is boss. And it kind of stuck ever since. Like even now in Minnesota, I go down to Minnesota where English is not a second language, right? Spanish is. So you go there and I say, hi, my name is Marlène Boissonnault. People look at me like, what the heck did you just say? Like, it makes no sense. So I say, people call me boss, right? So then from there, everybody calls me boss. It's just the easy kind of go to. Somebody says boss, I turn my head. Like, it's very much so my nickname. And then yeah, it just stuck. And it's just, like I said, such a cool nickname, especially in the sports worlds. Like, it's just one of those things, especially as a goalie, where it's that unique position where
Yeah.
you really have to have that boss energy. It sticks really well. It couldn't be any better.
Goalie, I can only imagine. Do you
Yeah.
feel that vibe too as a goalie? I mean, when you're in the
Oh,
net,
yeah.
do you feel like the general? Do you
Oh,
feel
yeah.
like the boss out there every time you step on the ice?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And there's one thing actually that a couple years ago I went to a goalie coach out in BC. He's phenomenal, Joey Alley. If you ever do some research on him, he's one of the best. He works a lot with blind hockey athletes, actually. Phenomenal goalie coach. But anyways, I had gone there a couple years ago and we were working on sort of the mental side of the game. If there's a zone entry, how do you really attack that and approach it like almost like you own the game, right? So that you're not put on your heels, so that you're not nervous. And he had said like you got to have that boss energy, boss as B energy, you know what I mean? Like you really have to like bring it. And I remember him saying that and I was like, bring it. Oh, like yeah. So now honestly, every time that there's no entry, I always say bring it. And sometimes I say it out loud,
Wow, and
sometimes I'll
every
say it
time,
in my head. Every time like if
brilliant.
you're wondering what I'm doing during that zone entries, I'm saying that term just because bring it is like bring it on, right? Like I'm built for this. I've done everything to put myself in a place where bring it, like I'm ready for it,
Yeah,
right? And that's that
you're gonna
boss
see it. You
energy.
want it. You want a goalie that wants to eat pucks, So that's
Yeah,
cool.
100%, 100%. And honestly, in university, I remember sometimes we would be up or down. Like the score never really mattered, but I remember seeing like 7 minutes on the clock and being like, "Frank, like game is ending soon. Like I want more action." I remember like wanting more shots. And sometimes goalies usually will say like, "Stay on the other side." Like I have good stats, we're winning. Stay on the other side. But I remember my feeling was like, "Man, like I want more shots. Like I want more action. Like I really." Enjoy being in the heat of things. So I think a big part of it is like obviously that boss energy, like obviously really enjoying getting shots and getting into the action. And when they have that zone entry, bring it, right? It's really that boss energy, like bring it. I'm ready for it, right? So that's how it all ties up. And it works really well. Obviously, it became a little bit of a part of my identity in the sense of being boss. Like I think my Instagram handle is like Marlène Boss, right? Like it's a very cool nickname. A 6-year-old. Like I said, I have a very, very French name. So for people to remember my name, usually easier if I just say boss and then they say, okay, boss plays for Minnesota or boss plays for Montreal. And it kind of sticks around better than saying Marlène plays for Minnesota or Marlène plays for
Yeah,
Montreal,
no, for
right? So
sure. I
it
love
really
it.
helps the brand. Yeah,
I love the
it's
nickname.
pretty
And
awesome.
do you ever incorporate it into your mask, or do you have like a favorite paint
Yeah.
job that you've done and you incorporate
Yeah.
boss into it?
Usually I have boss always on the back plate, and I don't
Yeah.
know if I have my mask pictures close, but ultimately I always have it. It's one of those things where you got to have your brand if you can, and honestly, I have it everywhere. Like this is one of my. I'll show you a couple. This is one of my
Okay.
PWHPA. This is one of my PWHPA helmets. Let's see. So
Nice.
I
Yes.
had the lighthouse from back home. Obviously, you have boss written down with the New Brunswick flag. All my masks have it. This was my my Montreal, the back of my Montreal helmet. I just looked up Boss, so it's highlighted, but it's basically the same lighthouse, Boss in there, Canadian flag, American flag. I haven't gotten my American, or not my American, my Minnesota mask designed yet, but it's always on there. And honestly, I'm looking to
Okay.
launch eventually a goaltending company. Like I said, I do a lot of private coaching locally in Calgary and throughout America. And I think one day,
Yeah.
Boss Goaltending sounds like a great name. I think it might
I
be,
mean, it rolls off the tongue. I love it.
yeah, it really does.
Wow. So from Big Red Cornell, Frozen Four, then after you graduate, you got pre-med. Do you have like an idea of what you want to do with pre-med? Like, did you want to be a doctor?
Definitely. I think I definitely one day want to be a doctor. I have obviously have the passion for it. In school, I really liked those programs. I always went above and beyond. I had a major in biology and I had a double minor in psychology and in leadership. Funny enough, like college had leadership minors, which is pretty cool. Obviously, it is very applicable in the hockey world and beyond. But I always had an interest in that. I don't know if I'll go full med path in terms of like having a gen med or having my own practice, but I always loved emergency medicine. I think obviously
Yeah.
maybe it's that goaltending kind of loving the craziness of things or the very high intensity moments. Maybe emergency medicine would be great, but I've kind of really enjoyed the mental side of the game lately. So who knows? Maybe I go into some sort of psychology, whether it's mental performance or something like that. I'm still very open to it. I'm a big proponent of do everything you can at 100%. So when I came out of university, like I said, the CWHL had folded, which was the professional league back then, where I was kind of hopefully going to be playing, and that's where I was lining up to go in Montreal actually back then. But obviously
Yeah.
it folded. So when it folded, the PWHP eventually got created. But then before that, I was like, okay, well, if I don't really have a place to play now, I'll stay fit, I'll stay active, but I'll write my MCATs, which is the admission test to be able to get into med school. And obviously you got to get a certain grade and whatnot. So I remember studying for that one. But then when the PWHPA came around and I was trying to do both, you try to study, and you study a very crazy amount of hours a day, but you also train a crazy amount of hours a day on top of obviously cooking and doing all the stuff you got to do, which is very time consuming as a pro athlete. And I remember both were just such high demand. You can't do both, or at least I couldn't. For me, I very much so chose if I'm going to do professional hockey, I'm going to go 100%. If I'm going to do med school, if that's what I want to do, I'll go 100%. And so my biggest motto was you can always go back to school, but you can't go back to playing pro hockey, right? So that's the path I'm on. I'm just going full
Exactly.
steam with pro hockey, and then one day I'll go to med school. When is that? Hopefully a couple years from now. But then ultimately I'm in a place right now where I'm really happy playing pro hockey. It's one of those things. Med school will be down the path, no doubt, but it'll take a while before I get there.
That's a great story. And I kind of want to swim back to what you said about how you got the nickname Boss. It was pretty cool. And I was just thinking about like how you got the nickname and how you must have transitioned to having guys sigh at you at a young age to then
Yeah,
becoming the boss of the team, right? Like
yeah,
that must have been so cool, I imagine. So
yeah.
yeah, if you could talk a little bit about how the transition was and how you felt at the moment.
I mean, yeah, I mean, going from having teammates that would sigh at me to having it in boss and embracing it fully was definitely not an easy path, but I think it's a path that I just really embraced, right? You're in a place where I remember back then it was like I said, I had that one coach that had very much so given me kind of a motto that obviously changed the game for me, but ultimately it was very much so I love the game so much that, hey, I'm just gonna have fun doing it. If anything, let me have fun while I do it. If it's not gonna last very long, I'll just have fun. And then from there, like I said, that's how you develop the best, because if you don't have fun, you can't really develop. But in doing so, I think I very much so developed a lot of confidence, because you get in a place where you have so much fun and you're not afraid to get out of the cookie cutter position of goaltender, because I feel like goaltending sometimes is such a cookie cutter position where you just feel like your glove has to be a certain place and your blocker has to be a certain place, and if it's not exactly there, or if the rebound is not perfect, then you feel like, oh, should I have failed, like I should have done better. But as soon as you start to just have fun and make the crazy saves, make the windmills, make the kick save pad in the air, that's when you really develop, right? Because you really become athletic, and you very much so become confident to messing around, and you realize, man, like I can make a save any which way I want, as long as a goalie makes a save. Who cares how you do it? They don't ask how, they ask how many, right? Just like players scoring, it's the same thing. So at the end of the day, if you can make a save, like you're good. And then for me, it was very much so just have fun, develop things, try things out. And for me, it just worked out well. Like I said, I had so much fun, so I was able to mess around with things, and eventually it gave me skills. And once I had the skills and I had already the pre-established confidence and then the comfort level of being athletic and being crazy on the ice, I think there's just the perfect kind of scenario to go to these big programs, the prep school, the universities, to continue developing and obviously being put into a much more guided kind of pathway. And obviously with the national program, you just develop at a crazy level. And by the time I got to the PWHPA and eventually the PWHL, I think I was just established in a place where so much experience and obviously all the side moments, the great moments, that I was just in a place where bring it, for lack of a better term,
Heck
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
As soon as you get over
yeah,
the line, just bring it.
yeah,
Also, too,
exactly.
I was reading too that you also represented Team Canada and got to wear your nation's jersey. What was that like
Yeah,
for
yeah.
you as a Canadian hockey player to be able to wear Team Canada sweater?
Really, that was really amazing. I got to wear the Team Canada sweater on a couple occasions. Like I think I started around 16 years old is when I played for the U18 program for the first time, and then I went on to play U18 a couple of years, and then U22, and then got an invite for the senior national team program. But like I said, that was closer to COVID, so that one was a bit of a tricky one. But then the first U18 and U22 programs, phenomenal. I got to play in Buffalo, New York, our big international championship there. We had one silver. I remember the gold medal game was a heartbreaker against the United States, but it was the first time for me that I played internationally, and that was pretty
Yeah.
amazing. And then we went on to play in Germany for my U22 years. Also outstanding. I mean, at that point, you're playing in different countries, you're getting incredible experiences. You're playing obviously teams from all over the world that have all sorts of experience themselves, and that was also very, very special to us. And nothing beats wearing the maple leaf. I mean, you go in a place where you really realize, like, man, I'm the one of two or three that were selected in my age in the entire nation, right? that's pretty darn special. So to be able to have that opportunity and to be able to be recognized as such was just, yeah, a very humbling moment. And like I said, I'm still very young and I'm still in the place where obviously I got to get my games going a little bit more, but once I get into more games in my back pocket, hopefully that's one thing that I can start to do again, is wear that Maple Leaf again. So who knows? Like I said, I'm still young and I'm still in the place where I'm hopeful for that. But yeah, nothing beats wearing that Maple Leaf. It's just something truly, truly special and unique.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. So obviously, looking ahead, is that something that's on a goal of yours? Looking ahead
Yeah.
to the Olympics in the future is something
Yeah.
that you're aspirational towards.
Definitely. I'm in a place where I always strive to be the best in my game. And I think the Olympics is obviously one of the things where you can continue to strive to be obviously an Olympian. So I
Yeah,
definitely an aspiring Olympian in the sense of it's one of those things where I've been a part of the national program for many, many years. So I know what it takes. I know how to get there. For me, I'm just in a place where I just need more game experience. Like I said, I've been through a lot of surgeries and different injuries, things like that. So I've been kind of having less games. When I do have games, I do very well, but it's one of those things like goalies, I was telling you earlier, they need to be a little more older in the sense that they have more games, more experience. That's very valuable to obviously big programs like the national program. So to me, I'm just in a place where I just got to establish more games under my belt, obviously do well in those, and then from there, see where it goes. But definitely the Olympics are definitely a big dream of mine, for sure.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So for now, it's
Yeah.
finishing off the season, or you guys, how's the team doing in Minnesota with the Frost?
Actually, pretty good. Our coach actually just told us one of the stats where I didn't realize. So last year, the Minnesota Frost heading into playoffs were actually on a losing streak, on a very, very big losing streak. And last year they won the cup, right? They won the Walters Cup after being on such a massive losing streak. So right now, he was pointing out that we do have a couple more games this year, but where we were, I think last week, or one of our games was exactly the same result that we had heading into playoffs last season, where we won that losing streak. We were below that 500 mark, obviously not winning as much as we wanted to, but the exact same place where we were last year. Which, if you think about it, last year we got a cup out of it, right? So we're in a place where right now we're doing good. We
Yeah,
played our last game against Toronto here a couple days ago and did phenomenal. Our team played really well, way more chemistry than we had the game prior. So I think that was a little bit of a pivotal moment of realizing, hey, we're not doing all that great, but ultimately that's the game of hockey. There's ebbs and flows everywhere. And there's only 6 teams. So if there's only 6 teams, you just know that there's anybody could be first, anybody could be last. It just depends on the game and how people play, right? If you're on the road, if you're not, there's not that much of a
yeah,
discrepancy between, obviously, like the NHL, you have the top 10 and you have the bottom whatever, right? The bottom 10. So it's very much a massive gap, but the PWHL doesn't have that. So we're in a place right now where I think we could do very well. The team is very, very skilled. We have a lot of depth. So I'm excited to see how it goes for the rest of the season. Definitely.
yeah. It's gonna be exciting to watch. I'm gonna be looking forward to following along the way here, rooting you the best. Well, let me tell you
Yes.
something. You're an inspiration to all hockey players, but especially for, like you mentioned earlier in the show, for young women, for young girls who are looking to look up to somebody, to be aspirational about what you can achieve in the sport of ice hockey. You're somebody who has
Yes.
achieved a lot of stuff, and I think you provide somebody that young girls can look up to as say, I can do that, I can accomplish that, I can go get an Ivy League degree, pre-med, play pro hockey, play for my country. What excites you more? What excites you the most about where the women's game is headed right now?
I mean, right now, seeing where the women's game is heading, like I said, it's amazing. What really gives me the most chills is whenever you sit in the stands, or sorry, see the girls sitting in the stands, and you see them with their cars and their big poster boards, because that's one of the most popular things at PWHL is the girls bringing their poster boards that, sorry, say all sorts of things on them, saying my dream is to play in the PWHL, or things like that, or my idol is, Taylor Heisey, my idol is Hillary Knight. Those things are just, to me, they're honestly tear jerkers. It's just one of those things where it's amazing to have girls being able to have those dreams. And then you come off the ice and they want your autographs, they want a photo, and every now and again, like I'll be out and about and I'll be wearing a PWHL shirt or something, and they ask me like, "Oh, do you play in the PWHL?" And here in Calgary locally, I do a lot of coaching, and it's coaching with young girls. So all of these
Yeah,
girls look up to you and they're like, they really think the world of you, which is incredible. And it's very much so a dream come true in so many ways to have these girls have that experience because it's something I never had. Like I said, I very much so was there through the inception, and girls before me even had it even worse, right? Where they never had that dream opportunity, and then now to be able to see the girls have that dream, it's one of the best things about the game. At the end of the day, the wins and losses, the girls watching, they don't care all that much. Obviously, they want their local teams to win, but at the end of the day, to them, we get to play pro and we get to make such huge strides that by the time that they get to our age, hopefully there's many more teams and many more opportunities to have those skills develop throughout the years, because right now we're very much so developing the girls at the grassroots level, because the girls want to start to play hockey more, and not only play hockey, but they want to get really good because now they want to play in the PWHL. So very much so growing the game at the grassroots level all the way through the pro level is going to be amazing. I know there's a lot of signs in the stands. There's one that still makes us laugh to this day where it was a bit of an older girl having the banner, probably late teens or whatever, and she said, if I knew the PWHL was going to be a thing, I would have tried harder. Right? Which is just so awesome, because it just makes you realize, like, holy crap, like, now girls are really going to try to work really hard. So the skills that you're seeing in the PWHL now, it's probably going to be nowhere in comparison to where it's going to be 10 years from now. 10 years from now, it's going to be phenomenal. Like, if you look at the NHL 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and you compare it to now, completely different game. Right? The evolution is phenomenal. So right now, it's amazing to think and crazy to think that we're probably the least skilled PWHL years in the making, right? 10 years from now, it'll be girls doing all sorts of things, right? We just had, I think, the first Michigan in the league happen last week or something like that. So the skills are developing, right? So it's one of those things where it'll take a while to get to where we want to be, but it's amazing to see that starting, like I said, at the grassroots level with the young girls that are dreaming to be where we are today.
I don't think the PWHL is as far behind as you think, because, like you said, first Michigan right away, right? And it wasn't very long ago that Michigan started to happen in real games. I don't think you guys are really behind that much at all. But it's great to see how it's coming along.
Yeah, we're not that far behind. Like, I definitely should give us far more flowers. We have the best skills in the world. I mean, you have the best athletes in the world on 6 teams, and to be honest with you, we have even more girls that are more skilled outside of the league, because it's such a small group like that. It's just 6 teams, which is not that many athletes if you think about it. So, because it'd be what, like 120 athletes if you have 20 athletes a team, and we have a couple more than that, but it's not that many girls in the entire world. In Europe, you have some athletes that are outstanding, but to them, they're long established local girls and franchise players, and they're all obviously their own markets. So we definitely have the opportunity to have more skills come over, but the skills that we have in the league currently is terrific. As a goalie, it makes you extra excited, because you know that you're playing against the best in the world, and it's one of those things where you have to have your best game. And I think intrinsically within the team or within the program or within the league itself, I think you're going to have a lot of development, because obviously if you're facing some of the best in the world, then you're going to have your best game, and then from there it's just going to keep rising, of course. But no, we have a lot of skills, and it's very, very much so the reason that I think people come to see us and watch our games, and the records that we have for attendance is beyond what we could have ever imagined, and it keeps obviously beating records to this day in attendance. So it's a really phenomenal league. It really is.
I mean, not just at the stadiums. I'm sure you fill out the stadiums a lot, but I personally know a lot of women hockey players in India, and I could imagine anywhere else in the world in the small hockey markets, right, where women are now coming up to even start to think, hey, PWHL, like maybe someday, maybe one day, right?
Yep.
And so I think stadiums, I'm sure you're filling out, but like you're also filling out. You have attendances from like around the world of like women looking up to you. It's pretty awesome.
Yes, it really is awesome. And then a couple of years ago, or actually last summer, I was called up to go do some coaching in South Korea, and it's one of those things where I was like, whoa, like South Korea, like, one, sign me up, because amazing trip, and 2, I get to see the athletes in that area and help them. I was kind of brought out there as a guest coach, and it's amazing. You go there, and South Korea, of all places, which couldn't be any further away from North America, pretty much, they admire us, and they know the league, and to them, you get there and it's like, whoa, you're playing the PWHL, right? It just makes you realize how big of an echo you really have with this league. And in India, there's so many markets out there that are just salivating, knowing that there's a new dream that they can really strive for. And it just, like I said, it's going to make everybody's potential grow that much more from the grassroots level, but also from different provinces, different states, and different countries. Like, it's just one of those things that is just, it's beyond words, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. Like I said, we're only in the second year. The inaugural season was last year. It's very, very early in the inception of it, so I'm really excited to see how it's going to develop. I'm thrilled that I'm obviously a part of that inaugural kind of steps, but it's absolutely thrilling to see where it started and where it's bound to go to.
You were a huge part of this growth of the women's hockey, the sport of women's hockey. What advice would you give any young girl who's strapping on the pads for the first time?
If anything, based on my career, I would say you gotta love the game. Whatever you do, make sure you enjoy going to the rink. It goes beyond saying, like, I mean, at the end of the day, for me to go to college and decide which program I wanted to go to, I wanted to go somewhere where I was gonna have fun, where I knew that if ever I were to get hurt or whatever, I'd still have a lot of fun. I think the way that I grew up playing hockey and being able to get to the level I'm at today, it was very much so about fun. Had I not had the fun I had, I don't think I would have developed to the level I did. So it's one of those things. Find a way that when you get to the rink, you find a way to have fun, whether it's playing with your friends, being able to develop new skills and be able to work on the Michigan or work on windmill saves, whatever it is. Find a way to have fun, because if you don't have fun, you're not going to want to do it every day. It's that simple. But yeah, if you can find a way to have fun and make the most out of it, do that. But on top of it, I would also say dream big. I don't think there's any dreams that are too big. It's one of those things where I grew up obviously in a very small town in New Brunswick, and it's not very popular that there's girls that come out of there playing for the national teams. We had a couple, obviously, but it's very rare. And I think what really sets us apart is we dream big. And when we do so, we really kind of set the bar high, or what is that saying? Shoot for the moon, aim, land amongst the stars, or something like that. As cheesy as it is, but it's so darn true. Like, if you really aim high, you're going to be bound to land somewhere pretty darn nice, right? Like, if you just go every day and doing the bare minimum just to get through, you're not going to be, you're not going to be the best. You gotta train like the best to become one of the best, right? It's that simple. So it's one of those things where strive for the big leagues, for sure.
Unbelievable. Super inspirational. Boss is not just a nickname on the ice, it's a nickname off the ice. It's super inspirational to hear your story. Where can anybody that wants to reach out to you, find you, where can they find you online?
I always say my DMs are always open. Like I said, on Instagram, my handle is Marlene, if for the English terminology, but it's Marlène Boss. Super easy to find on there. I love to respond to my DMs. I have young girls, parents of young girls, all sorts of people reach out to me all the time. I'm sometimes slow to respond to my DMs because I tend to get a couple, depending on the time of the season. It's one of those things where I love to reach out to people there. I think on Twitter, I also have some stuff on there, probably the same handle if I think about it right, or maybe is there just BOI instead of boss at the end, but pretty much all my handles everywhere are the same. I like to post all sorts of content on social media, motivational stuff, funny stuff, all sorts of stuff, just to keep up with obviously the life at the professional league. So that's where you can find me. Honestly, I love interacting with different athletes at different level, at different stages in their career, from being a fan to being obviously in the professional or heading down the professional route. So that's, my DMs are always open. I like to say that I'm human just like everybody else. I'm not any better. I'm just one who got more lucky, if anything.
Marlène Boissonnault, thank you so much for coming on the Buttendz Sessionz podcast today. You're an amazing guest. We're super excited to follow your career, and good luck this season, obviously in Minnesota and beyond, and we can't wait to see where you take things. Thanks so much again. Really appreciate you coming on. It's a real honor.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. That was awesome. Really, really fun.
I appreciate it. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Another Buttendz Sessionz. We'll see you again soon. And we're out of here. Thanks, guys. Boss, thank you so much. That was unbelievable. You killed it. I can't tell you how grateful I am for your time today, for you coming on and sharing your story. And it was an honor, and it was a super fun time for me. Just